This conference will now be recorded.
Welcome, everybody. If you have questions, just go ahead.
Hi, Francis. This is Divya.
Hi, Divya.
Hello.
Yes?
Yeah, I have a doubt about for some time, for quite some time actually. So there is something that you describe as serendipity and siddhis. I have some kind of anxiety around that issue. What is the difference between the two?
Between
About
what and what?
serendipity and siddhis.
Serendipity and cities?
Yes.
Oh.
What is the difference between them? I have some anxiety around that issue. And
Yeah.
why
Yeah.
can one be celebrated and the other can be a trap?
Okay. Cities are, oh, there is an echo. Could you reduce the volume of your speakers?
Sorry.
Or it's better when you come to this thing to use this type of thing, then we have a clean sound for everybody. So
I'm using these, but they're kind of different. Okay, I'll mute myself.
no, now it's better for some reason. We don't have this echo. Cities versus serendipity, there are two aspects to cities. One is that they are attributed to a person. That someone through yogic practices or this type of thing acquires powers that are not common, but they belong to the person. The story that I tell about the cities is the one of the Buddha had to cross a river, and there was this yogi in front of him who just walked on water and crossed the river. And the Buddha took the ferry, I mean the little guy with rowing across the river. And when he reaches the other bank, he told the yogi, "Well, I was quite impressed by your performance. How long did it take you to acquire this siddhi of walking on water?" And the yogi said, 20 years doing 4 hours of pranayama every day. Said the Buddha, "It cost me 2 rupees.
Yeah, I understand
Okay.
that.
Okay. So the first difference is that the siddhis belong to a person. The serendipity belongs to the self. The second difference is that siddhis are supposed to be uncommon, not common. They are miracles, if you will. They are kind of exceptions to the laws of physics. Whereas serendipitous events, although they can be miraculous in that sense as being exceptions to the laws of physics, serendipitous events are often subjected to two different interpretations. One, for the one who is a truth lover and knows better, his interpretation is serendipity. In other words, a kind of miracle, synchronicity, whatever, depending how it happens. Whereas for the one who is not interested in the truth, they appear just as normal or at best as coincidences.
Okay, yeah. So in one there is no in serendipity you don't take credit for it. It's the happening in the self. And for siddhis you built an ego around it and it's for the person. And it takes a lot of effort to do something which is a very specific kind of thing and
But
that and
what is it that bothers you? Just tell me what bothers you, because you asked a question about the difference, but you didn't tell me what was bothering you, what your problem was.
problem is that you can get entangled in that if you think that you got something like that, then you can build an ego around it.
I see. Yeah. So I think that my answer answered that concern.
Yes, yeah, yeah. I had another
Regarding the
question, but
story, there was a story of some conquistador, a guy from Spanish, I think, nobility, and he was in America, I guess in South America or in Mexico, and he was taken prisoner by the locals, and there was the daughter of local tribal ruler or chief who had just passed away. And he was taken to her, and apparently by putting his hands on her, she came back to life. So the locals were quite impressed by the guy, but they didn't give him his freedom back. But what they did, he became some commodity that they would exchange with other neighboring tribes. So the way it works, the way the deal was made is they would go to the tribe, they would take everything, all the belongings there, and they would leave the guy, the healer, in exchange for all you can take, all you can eat type
yeah,
of buffet. And so then the guy would heal using this mysterious power that has been given to him, would heal the sick in the tribe, and then he would be transferred to another tribe in this way. Up until one day, during one of these transfers, he ran across a squadron of Spaniards, and of course was liberated. Came back to Spain, but then all of a sudden his powers had disappeared. They didn't work. They worked only for the time he was there. He was a prisoner. Just so it's a type. You can call that a city, but it was not really a city. He hadn't worked for that. He was not really interested in it. It just happened in this case. At least that's what the story tells.
Yeah, okay. Thank you.
That was not for you, that was for everybody. We have time during those dialogues. Go
Yeah,
ahead.
I had another question. I had another question, but I can't remember what it was. So I'll ask some other time. Bye.
Okay.
Hi, Francis. This is Fred.
Yes, Fred. Hi.
Um, uh, you gave me a wonderful answer a couple of weeks ago. I asked about, was there consciousness before there was life? And you went way back past that to the Big Bang, etc. And I've looked at that answer and kind of contemplated it a bit. And there's one thing I didn't get clarity on that it was the main point, I think, and it was that awareness cannot be attributed to a fragment. Can you just go through that? Just the why is it logically or rationally or whatever, why awareness can't be attributable to a fragment? It has to be all. It's intuitively, I get it, but I don't think I followed the reasoning.
Well, I don't remember what I said, but definitely a fragment is an object. And therefore an object is perceived. So
Yes.
what can be attributed to an object is sentience. But awareness is a subjective experience. Therefore, it cannot be attributed to an object because once we have understood the distinction there is between sentience and awareness, I guess you got that one, right?
Yes. Yeah, you've gone through that a few times.
Yeah. So definitely sentience can be attributed to objects like human beings, dogs, snakes, whatever. But we are never certain. There are categories of objects like plants.
Yeah.
We are not sure, or electrons going through a two-slit plate. We don't know. So there is not this type of certainty, and that's what. In other words, sentience is a man-made quality, and its attribution is man-made also. Whereas awareness is a subjective quality.
You just cut out. You just cut out. You came back now, but you cut out for about 30 seconds.
Yeah, awareness. So awareness, thank you, Denise. Awareness is a subjective quality which, unlike sentience, is not attributed by human brains or human minds to objects. It's a quality that knows itself directly with absolute certainty. It is purely subjective. So, and for that reason, it cannot experientially, that perhaps the point I was missing, it cannot be experientially attributed to object, because we cannot think of any thought experiment that could bring a definitive answer to the question, can awareness be attributed to an object? So perhaps that which was missing was the word experientially.
Maybe
You
so.
know?
Yeah.
Awareness cannot be experientially attributed to an object.
Okay.
It can be attributed. It can attribute itself to itself, definitely,
Mm-hmm.
because we know, we are aware, and so awareness knows itself. Therefore, the quality of awareness can be attributed to awareness experientially, because we know experientially that we are aware. So experientially, we can attribute the quality of awareness to our reality, which is not an object. But we cannot attribute the quality of awareness to an object, unlike sentience.
Okay. So the other day when you went through it, you went through 7 different, I noted them all, 7 different kind of journeys through this reasoning. And the one that was seems to be the easiest for me in a way is when you talked about the laws of physics. And you actually said this a year and a half or so ago in a retreat. And it was very shocking to me because I have a science background. But you said that those laws are in effect in between objects. And somehow that just freaks me out. There's a way that makes me, it's like it changes the view, my view somehow. I grew up on atoms, and I think I like atoms. I like little nuggets of, granite like. And so I definitely feel a resistance to this understanding. I mean, you found a nerve, you struck a nerve with this answer. And so I guess I just have to, I don't know, what happens when I think about it is my mind just sort of stops. It sort of shorts it out. I can't become comfortable with this. I don't feel like, oh yeah, that's how it is. So I guess that I just have to contemplate it.
Yeah, another way to look at it, since we make a small incursion into the realm of science, is that in science, I mean in physics, most theories, what they boil down to at some point is what we call the equations of motion. For instance, force equals mass times acceleration. That's Newton's law. I h bar psi equals h psi. That's the Schrödinger equation, or there is a similar law in quantum field theory that uses the Lagrangian of the system, and that accounts for the transition from one state to the next state. But it's always, we try to predict how a system evolves. So, in other words, it's basically what is it that connects two events, and of course that's the notion we have of causation. But that one event creates the next event, there needs to be something that connects these two events.
Mm-hmm.
You see? The event itself doesn't connect itself. In other words, the law is that which connects the events, or that which connects the states of the system.
Right, it's like a context,
Therefore, that which connects the states of the system is not part of the state of the system.
Right. Yeah. here you go again. So,
of course, the people would claim that it is the case because they don't understand what I mean by the law. You know, scientists will say, what?
yeah.
The wave function of the system is all we can know about the system. Yes, that's all we can know about the system, but it is not all there is about reality, because the laws of physics are part of reality, and the enforcer of the laws, the police, the quantum police, or the general relativity police that enforces the law.
So the quantum police are the same as awareness, or are they a subset?
No, it's just the thing is that whatever view we have of reality which is objective, such as we define reality as a wave function of the universe, for instance, okay? And that's all we can know theoretically about the universe. Well, however, this wave function is going to evolve. So what is the Hamiltonian of the universe, if you will? What is the law that is going to govern the evolution of the system? So the law is always kind of outside the system.
Yeah.
And
right.
and even why is it evolving in this way and not in that way, you see?
Yeah.
There is something that always escapes any limiting view. It's a little bit like the fact that the set of all sets is not a set in mathematics.
Yeah.
Whenever we try to catch reality in a box, we realize it is also outside the box.
Yeah. Okay. So I feel like a little kid laying on my back looking up into space. It kind of this makes that happen. I just like, wow, I'm just amazed and sort of can't really hold it very well. But
so am I, yes.
Okay. Excellent. Okay. Perfect. Thank you.
Hello.
Yes.
Hi, Francis.
Hi, Janet.
I virtual masters once
I have lost 20 seconds of you. Could you repeat,
about,
please?
you know, the how they had to keep themselves. I mean, oh, sorry, I think it's the phone. I heard one of the spiritual masters once talk about, you know, how somebody was trying to affect them in a negative way through, I mean, I guess black magic or something, a practice like that. And it just occurred to me that, you know, a being that has no identity, who's just pure awareness, how could he be affected by anything? Yeah, I mean, it's a two-part question. It's like, that's the first part of it. And the second is, during a healing session, you know, I was once told that something like that has been done to me, and to not talk about it because then it would get very dangerous. But the person who's, you know, involved with that would become very dangerous. So, I mean, to me, these were not really things that were, you know, my everyday kind of thinking or part of my beliefs. And I used to think that things, you know, come in your reality depending on your beliefs. So, in any case, I'm not really sure what to do with it, because it seems to have, if it has a big impact on one's life, I wouldn't know what to do with it.
What is your question? Can you put it in a nutshell? Because
My question is, if we're told that certain, you know, black practices have been done, What are we to do with that?
Against you?
Yes, against me.
Shrug it off.
Right. Well, I mean, it seemed to have a big impact on my thinking because I didn't know about all this, but what I observed was I was having thoughts that I'd never had in my life. Like I'm a kind of person who's not easily given to being afraid or whatever. And there were just thoughts that didn't seem like me because I could understand that, okay, it doesn't seem, like uh, it's not me that's afraid of it, but it's very distressing. Like you want to live your life with peace and joy and happiness. So it makes it difficult to shrug it off.
That's your problem, that you don't, because look at it. It is a problem to you only because you believe to be a separate entity.
Right, that's the more important thing. I don't even think that the earlier thing is important, whether it's done or not. How do we get over these beliefs of being a separate identity or anything of that sort?
Yeah. So if you wouldn't believe to be a separate entity, you wouldn't worry about somebody casting a spell on you or doing some voodoo things against you. It's only because you believe to be a separate entity that, and in turn, that creates some havoc in you. So the solution to that, the real solution is not to believe to be a separate entity. And the path to this liberation is by trying to find out why you believe to be a separate entity. In other words, it's not wishful thinking, it's not effort, it's not practices that will liberate you from the belief to be a separate entity. It's in understanding, experiencing. So, in other words, that can be achieved only through the investigation of the evidence you believe to have that you are a separate soul or a separate body. In other words, that you believe that you, the reality which is hearing my words right now, the real you, this reality, the real Janet, this reality which is hearing my words right now, is limited or is a prisoner of this body or prisoner of this mind or dependent upon this mind or upon this body, like a newborn baby is dependent upon his mother. It is this position of vulnerability that you have adopted without a shred of evidence for doing so. So you have to revisit why. Why? You have adopted it because your parents had adopted it, and they adopted it because their parents had adopted it, and it traces back a long way. But there are many things we do that without a meaning. We do them only because our ancestors used to do them. They have become meaningless, but we keep doing them.
And Francis, how do we check whether we are trading one belief for another belief? You know, the first belief was given by the parents, as you said, that this is a body.
First, don't trade a belief for another belief. You don't have to. Just get rid of your belief once you are ascertained to your own satisfaction that it is just a belief without any substantive evidence. I'm not asking you to replace it with a different belief. No, I don't want you to do that. I want you to see the belief to be a separate awareness for what it is, just a belief. And then that will pave the way for living your life from a different perspective. And by living your life from a different perspective, your mind will be changed. But even if your mind wouldn't change, even if your mind wouldn't change, even if you wouldn't get convinced that awareness is universal, by living your life from a vantage point of being agnostic regarding this question, you would still be free from worries, live a perfectly happy life.
Right, but there seem to be a lot of things that support this belief.
Okay, so then we are reaching really the substance of it. So
Yes.
I would say such as ?
Such as why does one take oneself to be the body is your question, right? Or the person, the body, mind, entity. Because I can only perceive from this vantage point, even though I understand that this is just a device through which perceiving is happening, but I can't seem to disassociate my awareness from the body.
I understand what you say. Okay. You say I can only see from this vantage point. And because I can only see from this vantage point, it is not me who sees from other vantage points. That's your argument?
I understand that the seer is elsewhere.
Yes or no? Yes or no? Have I formulated your argument correctly?
Yes.
I repeat it. Because it seems that I can only see from this vantage point in space. In space. It means that I cannot see from other vantage points in space.
Yes, that's one of the
okay.
Well,
let's take them one by one. Let's take them one by one. Would you agree that when I say that I can see only from this vantage point in space, I should add, I can see only from this vantage point in space and in time. Right?
I suppose.
Because tomorrow is not yet present, and yesterday is no longer present. So I can only see what is here and now. That's your argument, right?
I can only see through, it seems to be, my perception seems to be connected to this body-mind entity, yes.
Yeah. It seems that you can only see here and now. However, if I say to you, but weren't you the one who was seeing your face in the mirror this morning while brushing your teeth or combing your hair? Okay, although it is not your current experience. So you are not in front of the mirror right now the way you were in the morning. So you are not. But nevertheless, in spite of the absence of evidence right now that it was you a few hours ago, being the witness of that, you have no trouble saying, oh, no. it was the same awareness this morning as it is right now.
Right.
But you have no evidence for that, but it doesn't trouble you.
That is very true. It
Yes,
doesn't
that is
trouble
very
me.
true. So you have to be consistent. You cannot be take two positions simultaneously. As you say, only here and now. Awareness is only here and now. But you cannot say awareness is only here, but yesterday, tomorrow, everywhere on time, but only here in space.
Right. So that's why when you ask me about time.
Because experientially, all you have is here and now. So if you use the argument that all you have is here to justify your statement that awareness cannot be also out there, in order to be consistent with yourself, you have to say, using the same argument, that awareness was not out there in time earlier on this morning, that it was a different awareness. You see what I'm driving at? Either based upon the same experience, and the experience is here and now. You have two choices. Either you say there is only here and now, and awareness is only here and now, and all there is to awareness is what awareness sees here and now. Or you say, no, it expands in time, but then you have to be open to the possibility that it extends across
Yes, I'm
space.
open to the possibility that it extends, but you were saying that why is this belief there? Because I said it seems to have some association with this.
No. I am saying, why is this belief there? In order to destroy the arguments, to show that the arguments explaining why have no value. They are just. Another way to look at it is this: can something that we perceive in awareness tell us anything about awareness? That's a more general question.
I understand your question. And I think these are points that are good to break this the belief and to prove this belief to be false. But the association doesn't seem to. That's what I said. It's not limited to in space and time, but it seems to have some association with the feelings that are felt in this body. If you feel something, you seem to associate it.
Yeah, but association can be of three kinds. It can be, but let's make it more simple. Let's see, two types of association. Either the body-mind depends on awareness, or awareness depends on the body-mind. I'm not saying that there is no association between the body-mind and awareness. Of course there is. I'm not denying that. The question is, which way? One way, the other way, or two way? What kind of street is it? And we believe that it is a one-way street going from the body to awareness. In other words, we believe in ignorance that awareness is dependent upon the body for its existence. at some point we discover the reality of awareness, meaning awareness is ultimately independent from the body for its existence. And then we discover the identity, if you will, of everything with awareness. So in that sense, we can say it's a two-way street, but in fact, it's simply identity street. Whatever we perceive is nothing else than awareness, reality.
The last line you said, I didn't understand that.
I said that in ignorance, we believe that the body or the mind is primeval and that awareness is derivative, meaning dependent upon the body-mind entity. And then we realize the autonomy and the independence of awareness, its reality. Then the moment we realize the reality of awareness, there is a reversal, if you will, of the hierarchy of reality. Awareness becomes primeval. So it was a street, one way going from the body to awareness, and then all of a sudden it changes direction. But then ultimately we realize that the manifestation, the body, the mind, and the world are nothing else than awareness. So this, in fact, it was a two-way street, but we cannot hardly call it a two-way street because it's a oneness between awareness and the manifestation.
Right. I understand what you're saying.
Anyway, don't worry about your spooky problems. They would fall away if you become interested in your true nature. They would fall away without having anything to do to that end. Just know yourself and everything will be fine.
Right. Like when you say that awareness is the primary one, that's, in ignorance, it's the other way around, but in reality, awareness is everything. Yes, this is what I feel like, this is what I want to see, and this is what I want to prove to myself, and this is what I'm cooperating with. And so a lot of times I feel it's because I'm cooperating with it and I'm wanting to see it. It's there, but it doesn't feel like if somebody calls out my name, I'll turn around. But if somebody says awareness, I still have to remind myself, hello, I'm not this, I'm this. So that basically was to just deepen and further deepen in it, right? Is it just to keep reminding oneself, or what?
Well, it's just that awareness has many names. One of them is Janet. You may have other names.
Right.
Right?
Right. Thank you, Francis. One quick thing. When you say, when the awareness is not there, when I had anesthesia on me, so I felt like I didn't know what was going on. Awareness is always there. This is what I was trying to say. I didn't know how to phrase it, but awareness was there. But I felt like, oh, I didn't know what happened there when the anesthesia was given. And then when I wake up, something had to have been there for me to wake up, but I didn't know what happened during that whole time. Right?
Yeah, but awareness doesn't wake up. Things wake up in awareness. Objects wake up. So it is our language which is at fault. When we say I wake up, it it doesn't jive with our experience. We should say the world wakes up in me. My bedroom wakes up in me. My mind wakes up. In other words, we wake up with every thought. We wake up with every new sensation. We wake up with every new perception. And we go to sleep at the end of each thought, of each perception, of each sensation. And we could, instead of using the word wake up and going back to sleep, we could use the word we are born and we die. We are born with each new perception, we die with each perception, and we are reborn with each new perception, and we die again. So that's the true reincarnation business.
Yeah, maybe I'll have to listen to this last part again when I hear the recording. This needs to seep in. Thank you, Francis.
Hi, Francis.
Hi, Sujata.
A follow-on question, actually. I've been thinking about this too. You know, belief and understanding. So, you know, so when we come to a new understanding, then it seems like, at least for me, for a while, I have to very deliberately go to that understanding and then come and then derive from there, if you will. But at some point, shouldn't that understanding become a belief? So it really becomes intrinsic? Yeah.
Yes, that's fine. It's like I believe that Santa Claus doesn't exist.
Yeah.
It's a belief.
Yeah.
But it's a belief that prevents me from writing a letter to Santa Claus with ordering the stuff I want. It saves me effort.
Right. So that belief did come from understanding.
Instead, I use Amazon. So I believe in Amazon. I don't believe in Santa Claus for my ordering of stuff.
Right. Right. So that's what I meant. So that belief ultimately came from an understanding. You had a different belief, then you went through an understanding process, and then it becomes. So now when that understanding
it comes from a repetition of experience. It's the way science works. It's called reasoning by it's induction. You know, there are two ways of induction. It's not mathematical induction, but it's philosophical induction. That having seen the sun rise in the morning many times, then the assumption is that, and the belief is that tomorrow it will rise again. So that's this type of, through repetition of experiences, then we create a belief, but it is a belief which makes our life easy.
Right. What was the second one? You said there were two types of induction philosophically.
Oh, no. The other one is mathematical induction. You know, if a property is true for n equals 1. If true for n, it implies that it is true for n plus 1, then it is true for all n. So
sure. Okay. So now for that understanding to become the belief, that's where also the yoga helps. The yoga has to come in, because that whole thing with the body sensations also has to be figured out.
Yes, because the yoga is part of the experimental process. So in a sense, the experimental process changes our belief system. Our belief systems, and our belief systems are in fact of two kinds. There are belief systems that are stored in memory, if you will, and there are other belief systems that are stored in patterns, bodily patterns, patterns of behavior, postural patterns, patterns of movement and patterns of, and perhaps cellular patterns. So all of that. So there are these two aspects, if you will, to talk a little bit differently. The patterns involve the brain and the nervous system as a whole, involves also the motor system, the muscles, and involves also the endocrinal system and all of that.
Yeah. So that's what I was thinking, this. So the understanding is good. I think both are essential. So understanding is vital, but it is the body, the all these systems that you were talking about, which kind of, brings you back and constricts you. So you have to pay attention to that.
It's a realignment of this. That's a sadhana after the liberation. It's the liberation is a glimpse of our true nature. It's a glimpse of understanding, but the vasanas, the leftovers of ignorance, although they have been, if you will, virtually, potentially eliminated, some cleanup is in order for them to be actually eliminated.
Yeah, and that part seems to be. Correct me if I'm wrong. Can be just distilled to recognize all these sensations as that of the body, and that's it. Nothing more to do.
Yes,
just recognition.
There is nothing more to do the moment on the perception level and on the bodily sensation level, your default state is one in which there is no separation, in which your body is the universe. Now, if you have to walk through a room which is full of stuff, like the back room of an antique dealer, a dealer shop, an antique shop, then you will be more aware of your body because you don't want to bump into solid objects. So that's why I said your default state is one in which you are in this expanse.
Oh, so it's more than just recognition. Then you have to do the whole sense of expansion has to happen.
It has to be to have become natural, that you don't even have to think about it, in the same way as when you drive, you don't think about in which way you turn the wheel, or you don't even think about how much pressure you exert on the brake. You see? So it has to be that organic. And in fact, it's easier to acquire this than to acquire the habits that are required to drive. It's easier because it's more natural. It's our natural state. So the body cooperates more. When we learn a skill like how to drive or to play a musical instrument, we have to force the body to do something that it was not originally designed for. But the designer of the body has put enough slack, enough margin of adaptability in it that it can adapt to drive or to speak languages or whatever. But our natural state is really the basic wiring of the body. the assembler language of the computer or whatever. It's really the basic thing. So when the body is, if the computer is programmed with using the lowest level code, then the computer is going to be very fast. Because the computer likes it. He likes that. When it is used, when you are doing something which is on MS-DOS, good luck. There are so many layers.
Yeah. So, but that seems to be more difficult. It seems to require, at least for me, more effort. So it seems unnatural.
Well, the effort that appears is, in fact, was already there. It's a resistance that appears.
Yeah.
It's a pre-existing resistance that gets revealed when you try to see this seamless continuity between your body and the rest of the world. If you feel an effort, think rather in terms of a resistance that arises. And in turn, this resistance, see how it manifests, as if you had to write a report on it. And you will see that it is either intellectually, but in your case, I don't think that much, but it's rather in the form of some bodily sensations. Now, if in turn you accept these bodily sensations, you welcome them, you look at them, then you will see that they are just bodily sensations. In other words, they don't separate. They just were before. As long as they were in the twilight, they pretended to separate you for your body from the rest. But the moment you see them for what they are, then you realize they are not separating anything from anything.
Yeah, that's why I asked you about the recognition, because it seems like that is one thing that is a big blocker, is, like you said, I'm giving it something more than what it is. Because what the inquiry, Francis, is so much fun. It is it's so enjoyable, but this part doesn't seem to be.
Well, but if it is not enjoyable, don't do it, because you have to do things only if you are interested, and you should approach that not from a physical vantage point, because if you approach it from a physical vantage point, you are going to make a practice out of it, and like you, I don't like practice. But approach it as an understanding. In other words, just try to see the truth of what I said, and that's enough. Try to see the truth of what I've said as it relates to the way you perceive the world and you sense your body. Just to see it, you can see it in one instant. But it cannot be purely conceptual. It has to be through the senses.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. I think that's fair, and that the good pointers. Thank you, Francis. Let me work on it. Thanks.
Francis?
Yes, Florian. Hi.
Hi, Francis. Also along the lines of yoga, I would like to ask you to clarify something that you said earlier this year at your house when you were given a short introduction at the beginning of the yoga meditation, and it surprised me quite a bit, because you said basically you were introducing, it's everything has to be effortless, and then you said if you fall asleep, that's fine. You do that quite often as well. And up until this point, I always thought that I've always approached, or I am approaching it as with an interest, like you just said, I want to explore something, interested in an interested manner. And falling asleep for me feels like abandoning the experiment in a way, because you become disinterested, or don't even start if you just, you know what I mean? Or maybe I misunderstood what you meant by that it's fine to fall asleep all the time.
Well, you're not going to sleep all the time like a bear during the winter.
No, but
so if you fall asleep, sleep. If you wake up, wake up. It's effortless. Why make effort to stay awake if you fall asleep? Or
yes, I get. I mean, if you're, I'm not talking about so much about if you're really physically tired, then of course. But I mean, if you're awake, or let's. I think this is quite connected. Let's say you don't directly fall asleep, but you drift off into effortless daydreaming, not actively fantasizing, but just thoughts come and go, whatever, and it's all happening effortlessly, images, thoughts, whatever. But at the same time, you're not doing the experiment that you wanted to do in the first place.
okay, what was the experiment?
That we would, well, let's say the experiment was to verify the borderlessness of myself and see how everything really arises in it. And
okay, how long does it take?
This recognition?
Mm-hmm.
Well, the moment I can formulate it, it has already happened.
So it's instantaneous.
Yes.
So fine. So you have conducted the experiment. Now you can fall asleep. Because your argument was, instead of falling asleep, I should be doing conducting the experiment, right? Then I ask you, how long does it last? You say it's instantaneous. So yeah, so then fine, you do it and then fall asleep. You see, what you have to understand is this. When we go to we have the wrong notion of what meditation is. So meditation is what happens when we neither believe nor feel to be a separate entity, to be separate, when we neither believe or feel to be limited. So when you conduct this type of verification, and as you said, and rightfully so, it takes no time to see my borderlessness experientially. What you have to know is that at that moment, you are in perfect meditation. It may not feel like what you have been told by so-called teachers, what meditation is like, that it is a nirvana, it's much better than smoking a big joint like that, or that shooting yourself with I don't know what, or much better than sex, or much better than Häagen-Dazs coffee ice cream. No, it's just this moment of peace, not knowing yourself. And at that moment, not knowing yourself as limited. You are beyond limitation. And therefore, as you don't know yourself as limited, you cannot be subjected to any worries. Because a worry can come in only the moment you believe to be limited. Are you getting that?
Yes.
So at that moment when you ascertain, at least that you don't know that you are limited, you are in the worryless state. In other words, you are in the peace, and you are in meditation, in perfect meditation. Now, it may be that the next moment you believe again to be limited, and then too bad, you have lost it. Yes.
And then I can restart the experiment at that point.
Yeah. But when you are without limit, what you do is irrelevant.
Yeah.
Whether you sleep, whether you daydream, whether you play tennis, or whether you read the newspaper, irrelevant. You remain in meditation as long as you don't re-identify with the body. So it's very important to understand that, because a glimpse of your true nature, when you understand something that I say here, which relates to your true nature, at that moment, when you say, yes, that's true, yes, that's my experience, at that moment you are in perfect meditation. And the moment you have experienced that once, this understanding will recreate itself. It's like a child who has, a very young child, seen in a brief moment that Santa Claus doesn't exist, and then goes back to the belief. But then the fact that he has seen the truth, for had a glimpse of it, it will come back to it. It will say, yeah, there is something fishy about Santa Claus. Yeah, and then we come back again. And at the end, this child, when he reaches the age of 26, 27, will be established in the certainty that Santa Claus doesn't exist. Hopefully.
I guess it comes down to what you said, that it's based on false preconceptions on what meditation is. There's some sort of activity that is ongoing or whatever. So
some kind of effort, this mindfulness thing, is terrible.
So in other words, let me
look. I have to be mindful of everything. So I am moving my hand. I am very careful about the sensation of my little finger here. But at the same time, I am speaking. So my lip. What am I doing with my left shoulder? Yeah. I mean, I'm constantly policing myself. I am the thought police, the movement police, the sensation police. I am living in Moscow in 1945, all of a sudden.
So in other words, let me see if I can rephrase this in my own words. When we begin an experiment, it might as well, or it may as well be over after 10 seconds when we verified that we are borderless, and then whatever happens can just happen, as long as it's not. Then thoughts can come, images can come, and that's all free flowing basically. No one's doing it; it's just being observed. As long as there a thought creeps in that there's an entity doing something or should be doing something, and then I can begin.
Yeah. And the reason why I'm insisting on that, because the beauty, now that you have understood what I've said, is that it's no problem to say, yes, right now I'm free. Right? You can ascertain that you are in meditation. Because right now I'm not believing to be a separate entity. I'm in not knowing. I am in this openness. I am not believing. I don't have to believe that I am universal consciousness either. That's the beauty of it. But I am 100% certain that I have no certainty whatsoever to be a separate awareness. So I am that awareness. Fine, that's perfect meditation. So then it brings a stop to this, because as truth seekers, we have this momentum going forward in the investigation. But then it will never stop. It seems that, no, that's where the buck stops, if you will, when you say, okay, now I am in this not knowing. That you can ascertain. And there is nobody, there is nobody in this not knowing. There is this awareness that I know to be in this not knowing right now. You see, that's the beauty of it. So you don't have to do mindfulness. You don't have to do practice. You don't have to do a mantra. You don't have to think. You don't have. You want to sleep, sleep. You want to daydream, daydream.
Ultimately, it's really we cannot even say what's going on in that moment. Who is doing, and if there's even anyone doing anything, it's just perception is being perceived. That's all we say.
There is nobody doing it. It does itself. But we can say we have also the freedom to put labels. In other words, we have the freedom to say, oh, I missed this forehand because I wasn't tracking the ball up, almost up to the racket head. But we can make comments like that. Oh, I put too much salt in the soup. It doesn't taste too good. It's freedom. How it doesn't it make sense to you when I say that? How could possibly more effort lead us to the effortless state? How could possibly more suffering take us to the suffering-free state? How could possibly more limitation, more constriction take us to the freedom state?
Impossible. So in other words, meditation is just dropping the effort of pretending to be something.
Exactly.
Thank you, Francis.
Exactly. First, we have to realize that to pretend to be something is an effort, because we are making constantly a choice to be a separate entity. We are choosing an option for which we have zero evidence. So that's a problem. That's work. And it's not sustainable in the long run. The only state which is sustainable in the long run is our natural state. And it sustains itself very well, thank you, on its own. Doesn't need the help of anybody.
Thank you, Francis.
Francis?
Yes, Stefania.
Hi, Francis. So having had a glimpse of my nature, I noticed that I go back to believing to be separate. And you mentioned once that yoga, when we believe to be separate, is not recommended because we might take it as a tool to get out of ignorance, when in fact investigation is needed to understand what is going on, in the sense of what do we believe to be. However, the understanding that I'm separate, when it kicks in, it's very irrational in my case. So in the sense that there is confusion, there is restlessness, and doing the yoga, so for example the one with the finger, or even the borderlessness exercise that Florian mentioned before does help at the irrational level, if that makes sense, to understand that I am not limited. Because in the moment investigation, might not quite work because the focus is not quite there. Like the mind is, yeah, even though I'm a logical person, but it doesn't seem to work logically. So having the yoga might put me on the right track to investigation. But then you said that it's not recommended. So I was wondering, just because this feeling of being separate is irrational, and the sensations are more irrational than rational in a way, linked with the feelings, wouldn't the yoga be recommended when doing investigation? Or a stepping stone towards the rational investigation? Because I feel blocked basically, and I don't know what to do. And I'm trying to keep going. You know, we kind of like when you're in hell, keep going. Basically, don't stop. And I try to pick a tool, and when I try to investigate rationally, I feel that it's not quite there, and I don't understand why. Maybe it's the way I work.
When you say I feel blocked, it's because you feel that the current situation is not good, right?
Yes. Internal one, right? You're like not
Yeah,
external.
yeah. Yeah. And it's because there are thoughts or emotions or feelings that seem to be detrimental to your happiness, right?
Exactly. Yes.
And what you have heard me say in such a case is, and I hope you do that, to ascertain for yourself that these thoughts and feelings wouldn't be there unless you believe to be a separate person, a separate consciousness. Yes?
I do that, but the result is not immediate sometimes.
Well, in other words, you are not able to see that these psychological suffering, let's call it that way, is there only because you believe to be a separate consciousness?
Yes, you can put it this way. I'm not able to see that the psychological suffering is linked to being separate, a separate
No,
consciousness.
not to being separate, to believe to be a separate consciousness. It's not at all the same. It's not at all the same. Linked to your lapsus was very revelatory in a sense. To believe to be a separate awareness. Every word is important. To believe, to be a separate awareness.
I understand. In other words, the separate awareness doesn't exist and it's only a belief that I don't see. It's not that I don't see a reality, it's that I don't see the belief. Right.
What I'm saying is that if you wouldn't believe to be, well, before that, it's important to ascertain for yourself that you are awareness rather than the body-mind. Is that clear for you?
It is clear, but because it has to be experiential. Like,
let me try to help you with that, because often, you know, what is important is to go back to basics and to start from a very strong support, from a very strong foundation. Regarding awareness on one hand and the body-mind on the other hand, there are two possibilities, roughly, right? One is that awareness is independent from the body-mind, or not. But if we would make the assumption in the case where awareness would be independent from the body-mind, and by awareness I mean the reality which is hearing these words right now, what would you say is me? The awareness or the body-mind?
the awareness.
That has to be clear. That has to be very clear. If they were distinct, you see, and at least in terms of yes, at least in terms, that was Michael, I guess, has his mic open, and Mary. Okay. In case where these two were in this mutual relationship, you would rather be awareness. That's clear, right? So now, remember that I define awareness in terms of a reality, the reality which is hearing these words.
Francis,
And
let's say that I don't believe, because I want to understand the basics very clear. Let's say that I'm afraid that I might say yes because I've attended so many webinars and I understand what you mean. But is this my true experience? I want to make sure that this is what it is. So let's say it's not, because I don't want to miss any step.
well, it's for you to know who you are. It's not for me to define for you who you are. All I can say is make the statement, in this moment, it is you who is hearing my words.
Yes, I get that. Okay.
Now, if then you translate that into, oh, now it's my body which is hearing Francis' words, you know, and if this translation occurs almost instantaneously without you being aware of that, of this subtle change,
It's clear, it's awareness. I understand, and it's clear.
you see what I mean? Because awareness comes before the body. That's what I wanted. Awareness is, in your experience, is the foundation of your experience. So then we have two possibilities. Either awareness is dependent upon the body, or awareness is not dependent upon the body. And then the question is, how can we establish? How can we answer this question? You see? But first, you have to answer this question for you, and I cannot answer it for you. You have to answer it for yourself. If awareness and the body are one, if awareness is dependent upon the body, then you're cooked. We are cooked. We are doomed. But we are doomed if and only if it is a fact that awareness is dependent upon the body. If and only if that's a fact. You see?
Which is not, it's just a belief, let's say. If it's
well, if we make the claim that it is a fact, we have to justify experientially this fact to ourselves. We need clarity. If we believe that it is true, we need to have factual, experiential evidence in support of this belief. So that's a point of contention, if you will. We have to clean up, you know, the foundation in this case, because it's like you had cleaned up your foundation. It's like you know, but there was a little tiny pebble, you know, in your shoe. So in the beginning, it doesn't feel like much, but if you keep walking, after a while, it hurts. And then you come to me and you say, well, it hurts. Then I say, yo, let's look back, take off your shoes. Let's look at your foundation to see whether you can walk further. Because it's a constant revisitation, you know, of the basics, in fact. There is nothing on this approach. We have to be very surgical with our understanding of what we are. So, as I often say, the bad news is that if awareness is dependent upon the body, we are doomed. But the good news is that there is no evidence whatsoever of such a dependency. So often, the way ignorance perpetuates itself is by how do you say, putting together these two issues into one, and then it becomes You cannot sort it out. In order to sort it out, you have to kind of separate the two.
When you say issues, you mean the body, mind, and the awareness?
The two issues being, on one hand, am I rather awareness or the body mind? And on the other hand, is awareness dependent upon the body mind? These are two issues. First, I have to decide what I am rather. If I start from the premise, I am the body mind, I'm cooked. If I start from the premise, I am awareness, but awareness is dependent upon the body mind, I am cooked too. What I need to do is to bring clarity into these two assertions. First assertion, I am the body mind. Is it my experience? And as you have said, no, as you have understood, I'm first awareness, but then almost immediately I connect that I am the one who is hearing the words immediately to my belief that I am, that this I amness, hearing the words, is consciousness, is awareness, is dependent upon the body mind. And then I say, I am the body mind. And because I've made these two, I sealed these two together, I glued these two together. So if I separate them, I first see, I am the one hearing these words. My reality is the reality, whatever that is, hearing these words. And then whether this reality hearing these words is dependent or not upon the body mind is a second issue that we address next. So we have to be very clear about the first one, awareness rather than the body mind. If I had the choice, if there were two different things. And then the next question is, what is the evidence? What is the evidence that awareness is dependent upon the body mind? Or what is the evidence that they are the same thing? And then I will discover, no, I don't have any evidence.
Yes, I guess it's like in my case, I like when I do go to the basics, it's almost as if there needs to be a bit of willingness and effort, which I'm not sure it's truly there. But and the willingness.
Yeah, but you shouldn't go there through willingness, through effort. Forget about getting there, because if you go there through willingness, it's because you are feeling that your situation is not good. Me as a person, I'm not good. I'm not feeling good. I have all these feelings. I'm doomed. I'm not a good person, etc. And you want to use the truth to solve your little personal problem.
Oh my God.
And then there is an effort. No, forget about that. Suffer, be a person, go into the mud, swim in the mud, immerse your head in the mud, enjoy the mud, right? And at some point, you put your head above the mud and you say, what Francis was talking about is interesting. In and by itself. I'm interested. Is that true? Is there an element of truth that I have got hearing that? You see? The movement towards the truth should be only for the sake of truth, only out of a desire to find out. a desire to find the truth about my reality, not a desire to have a better life, a better health, a better, all of that at some point should have been abandoned, so that this desire for the truth alone emerges for the sake of truth. And that could be accompanied with a hope. Yes, hope is okay. Hope that, yes, there is a possibility that awareness is universal. Yes, and in this case, yes. You see, it's not a hopeless thing. Hope is allowed, and enthusiasm is allowed, eagerness is allowed to discover. But if in the beginning, right in the beginning of the investigation, we decide I am a separate person, then the entire investigation is bogus. It's like a detective conducting an investigation about who has done the bad deed and has decided beforehand that he was his wife's lover. Although the guy is purely innocent, but he has decided from the onset that his wife's lover was the murderer, although he was in a totally different place at the time of the crime. He has decided, so he finds always ways to put the guy in jail. So it's the same thing. If in the beginning of the investigation you decide I am a separate person, how can you find out that you are not? Since every move you go through is based upon this predicate, or is predicated upon this assumption. You see,
Yeah.
there is this need of openness right in the beginning of the investigation. This not knowing has to be right there in the beginning.
I totally understand what you say.
And I am not saying it's not the case with you. Of course it is the case. But not always. You have to realize that there are moments when you are not coming from this openness. And in this case, you are doing a fake investigation, just as this detective is doing a fake investigation just to put his wife's lover in jail.
Well, because I experienced the opposite of believing to be separate, and I know how that feels. Well, when I come back to the belief of being separate, and whenever it comes, it's frustrating. It's just so frustrating.
No, because there is one thing that you are forgetting then, is that you are doing it just because you are enjoying it, because you are choosing it. So enjoy the ride. You have chose. I mean, it's like someone who buys a ticket for the roller coaster, and then when he is up into it, he says, "Oh, that's so brutal. Oh, I feel nauseating." Too bad, you bought a ticket and you get on the damn thing. Nobody forced you.
Thank you.
Thank you.